Hey y'all, it's DarkSoulsGuyX, your video game realist. Welcome to id Software's 35th anniversary podcast and Doom 2016's 10th anniversary. Fuck me, man, I swear it was just yesterday I was even talking about this shit. Now honestly, I've never really shared this story with anyone before, especially on my YouTube channel, so being Doom's 10th anniversary, I figured this was the right time to share it. So, in the year of May 2016, a small group of developers known as id Software, led by Marty Strutton and Hugo Martin, released a serious can of badass upon the world. Everybody thought it was going to be a terrible game, a sad last cast for the series, a dead game, a failure. But when the game released on May of 2016, it changed their entire minds almost instantaneously and took the world by storm. It made a comeback so good that it made every other first-person shooter on the entire planet look like a piece of fucking garbage. So to tell this story right, my passion for id Software came all the way back in 2001. That was about 25 years ago. And there was this disc in my father's library called Doom 2 Hell on Earth. And it used the application called Doom for Windows 95. And it was a client that ran only on Windows 95 and 98 at the time. I was 5 years old when I owned my very first PC. It was a Windows 98 PC with a ROM drive, a floppy disk drive, and one of those tube-looking PCs that you see back in 2001, those big square tube-looking monitors. And that's what I had. And it took like a good 5-10 minutes to boot up. It was very, very slow, very old, very ancient. So anyway, my father owned this disc that I found in his CD-ROM library by his desk. And it was a copy of Doom 2 for CD. So I grabbed this disc and I put it in my ROM and I loaded it up and installed this application called Doom for Windows 95. I knew this because the first music I heard when I put the disc in was the CD-ROM playing, or the menu used to install the game, and it played one of the soundtracks, one of the MIDIs from Map 16 Suburbs. And that was the music that I first heard. Then after I installed it, I launched this client for Doom for Windows 95. And I loaded this up, and one of the maps that was loaded by default was my favorite map of all time, Map 32. So the first time I launched this, I was in this room. There was a rocket launcher in front of me and a berserk pack that you pick up. And then you open this door, and to your left and to your right was all these blue-looking enemies. So that was the first enemy that I ever encountered in Doom. And they were pretty easy to kill. They weren't too hard. So after I cleared out the room and dealt with all the enemies, I went exploring around for a while, not knowing where anything was or what anything did. And I decided to myself, I'm just going to go around and just press a bunch of walls and look at everything and see if anything does anything. And I opened this door by accident. I didn't even know how it even opened. It was like, oh, how did I do this? And then I went inside, and here were these kits looking things, and they looked like little boxes with little pluses on them. And I'm thinking, they're probably important for something, but I don't know what. And then I went round the corner and I saw this vacuum cleaner sci-fi looking gun, and it had these little box things next to it. So I decided to pick that up, and that was the very first weapon that I had acquired in the game. My second older brother, who was much smarter than me, also played the game as well, but wouldn't tell me the cheat codes, wouldn't tell me how to play it, wouldn't tell me anything. So I had to learn it all by myself, and it was hard. So when I played Doom for the first time, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, but little did I know that something amazing was about to happen. So I decided to leave that secret room and go back to that area where all those blue soldier guys were, and I decided to try the door on the other end of the room, the big grey door. And behind this door was this big cybernetic looking guy that just, no matter what I did, just killed me in 2 blows with his rocket arm launcher. And I died several times trying to beat him. But then I decided, after several attempts, I decided to go back to that room that I found that weird sci-fi looking gun thing in. And I decided to do the same thing again with the door on the other end of that room, and instead lure him all the way back to where you started the level, back in that room. And I shut the door and just let him follow me for a while. And I sort of just sat there for a bit. And I sort of used the door as a cover point so that I didn't die from the cyber monster's rockets. So I did that and just kept firing this blue looking gun. Little did I know what it did, and just did that sort of back and forwards for a while, and sort of just like pop out for a bit and then pop back a bit and then repeat the same process. After a couple minutes, just as I was about to die, about to fail again for the 50th time, I witnessed this red puff of explosion as the enemy disappeared and died. I was literally mere millimeters from death. Being a 5-year-old kid, the feeling of that victory was overwhelming. In just those few minutes, something about me and that series just clicked. Of course, the very next day when I launched the Doom for Windows 95 application again and looked at the drop-down list and saw all the levels in number order, that's when I figured out that I had to play the game from start all the way to finish to get a good understanding of what this game actually was. And after I had done that, man, I just fell in love. Me and that game just had such a deep relationship. I knew I was going to be spending the rest of my life playing this. And I think that alone was the beginning of my love and passion for id Software. My father did originally own the original Doom from 1993, but he only had the shareware version of the game, and the only full version of Doom he owned was Doom 2 Hell on Earth that was on the CD. It was only until the Xbox port of Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil that I actually owned the original 2 Doom games, because it was included in that package alongside with the master levels for Doom 2. The Xbox versions of those games, though, sounded very different than the PC versions that I had played before, and you can actually listen to the 2 different versions thanks to the crew at Night Dive and id Software working together on the re-release of Doom 1 and Doom 2, which they did just recently. You can actually go back and see what that sounded like back in the day. It's actually quite incredible the amount of work that Night Dive put into that detail-wise. Doom 1993 and Doom 2 Hell on Earth will always have a very special place in my heart, because they're the games that I grew up with when I was a kid. I played through them on the original Xbox many times, and every time I played them, the outcome was completely different. It's what made me keep coming back many times, and just, I fell in love with the series so much, more than what people realize, and it was still to this day one of my most beloved games of all time. This leads us to the next part of my story, the chapter of Doom 3 and Resurrection of Evil, with my very special connection with the game's director, Tim Willits. He is the creative director of Doom 3 and Resurrection of Evil, and is also one of the original id guys that worked on the 4th episode of the original Doom. I had the absolute honor and the privilege of meeting this man in person at PAX Australia in 2018. It was a absolute honor beyond honors. I shook hands with that man, and he was the greatest game developer I ever knew. He was also a very important mentor to Marty Strutton, and helped him by teaching him his development methods and more or less just helping him shape what id Software would become. I remember my interest in this when I was first told this tale. At the very end of Doom 3's campaign, just before you go up against the final boss, there's this brick on the left-hand side with the id Software logo on it. So you press that brick and a door opens up to your left, and then you have this table with this PDA on it, and you pick this up and you read that PDA, and it has all the thank you notes from all the developers of id Software and all the letters to all of their families and children. I sat down, I think, and probably read about 20, 30 of these, basically how many there were. Every single one of these was written by a human being. Marty Strutton's name was one of them. That alone was where his career with Doom 2016 began. Right after Resurrection of Evil, right there and then, was when his career for id Software truly began. Doom 3 had a really good, fantastic sci-fi story, but at the same time, the gameplay was sorta like, this was pretty ordinary, but it just didn't feel the same as the original games. But I didn't want to shit on it because it was id Software's work, and I know I love that company so much. So my opinion of it is sort of mixed. Same with the game that they did later on called Rage. They tried to do something new as well, and it also kind of didn't work out either. Tim Willis was also the director of that as well, and he loved Rage a lot as well, so I also didn't want to run that game down in front of him too. I did like it. I did like Doom 3, Resurrection of Evil, and Rage that he did. It just didn't feel authentic compared to what other guys have done with the original two Doom games. I didn't feel like it lived up to the expectations of what those games were. But it's okay for a game to be different as long as it's in the core the same. Doom 3 kind of wasn't, but at the same time it kind of was. It was sort of a mixed and divided reaction between this one. However, at the same time, they were also trying to work on another Doom game after Resurrection of Evil called Doom 4 that was going to be a sequel to Doom 3, but based on Earth, just how it was in the classic games in 1994. But however, during the development of Doom 4, during early development phase, they ran into some serious trouble they didn't expect. Little did they know of how to build modern games for the Xbox 360 and PS3 era. Bringing Doom and bringing that game into the modern mechanics, they ran out of funding. And id Software, being an independent company, they almost went bankrupt. And when I found out about this story, as a kid, I was devastated. All I wanted to do was take some money, put it in an envelope, write their address in Texas and Houston, and send them the money overseas from Australia. My parents probably would have confiscated it or something, but man, I wanted to help them so bad. A company as great as them, making one of the best first-person shooters of all time, only to go bankrupt in less than a couple years? A video game company that makes video games that good doesn't deserve that. But here's where things get interesting. One day, out of the blue, Bethesda Game Studios gave id Software a call, and they met with each other, and they decided to do a deal for $1.7 million. And id Software was bought by Bethesda, not knowing that it would be the very thing that saved that company from bankruptcy. And out of Bethesda's board of executives, they sent Todd Howard down there to talk to id Software and to make sure that the deal went through. The first game that Bethesda helped id Software publish was the original Rage back in 2007. 5 years later, they decided to do a remaster of Doom 3 and Resurrection of Evil, and added a new package called The Lost Levels to make up for the failure that was supposed to be Doom 4, built on that engine. It also included the Xbox 360 versions of the classic Doom 1993 and Doom 2 Hell on Earth re-releases, and it also contained the add-on for those classic games, No Rest for the Living. This was a perfect opportunity to give the series a fresh start with the Lost Levels, and to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the classic games with the re-release of the Xbox 360 arcade versions of Doom 1 and Doom 2. So this is what we had for a while before the Xbox One generation began. The truth is, if it was not for Bethesda and Todd Howard making that meeting with the heads of id Software, that company would be gone. There would be nothing of it left. Todd Howard saved id Software from bankruptcy, and is why Doom 3 BFG Edition was so widely praised by the fans due to its polishness. But at the end of the day, Doom 3 was one game in the series we all agreed to let die in peace. Shortly after the release of Doom 3 BFG Edition, Tim Willits began his mentor work with Marty Strutton for about a year, then afterwards left to go work for a VR company. Marty Strutton was left in charge of id Software from that point onwards, and he went round and talked to the entire team of id Software about the idea that he once worked on with the sequel to Doom 3, but the idea was shot down due to funding, and he came out and said to all the crews and all the development teams, let's have a crack at this again, but call it something else. He also gave a personal call to John Carmack to ask him if he could oversee the production of his game while it was in development, to play it safe. In August of 2014, at QuakeCon, when it was running that year, Marty had the idea to showcase his work behind closed doors to an audience in secret that only a very few select people would be allowed to enter and join. The footage was about 30 seconds long, a teaser of the Revenant the new designed Revenant in the id Tech 6 engine. When that showcased in that room full of people, they got up out of their chairs with excitement and nearly screamed. It was that point onwards that made me so curious after I saw the teaser for Doom 2016 that made me consider and think, is this truly the remake we've deserved? 1 year later, when it premiered at E3 in 2015, my assumptions of id Software's work and the potential of a remaster of the original Doom was indeed correct. As soon as I saw that E3 2015 trailer, I knew right from the fucking start Doom 2016 was going to succeed. Right from the start. Everybody thought it was going to be exactly like Doom 3. It was going to suck. Be absolutely terrible just like the previous game before. But when it released on May of 2016, it changed their minds instantaneously in a way they did not even see coming. It is the greatest comeback in the history of the fucking century. id Software, a company that went from absolute bankruptcy to being on top of the world, beating every other first-person shooter and making it look like a piece of fucking garbage. id Software's success isn't driven by the money. It isn't driven by the Doom community. And it sure as hell isn't driven by Bethesda. You can argue against me as much as you want. id Software's passion for Doom won't change, and it never will. Every game developer out there finds a reason to do this. You don't sit in front of a desktop every day just to get paid. You do it because you love it and you're driven by the passion of the series. It's what keeps you going. Same as it has for me for 25 years. And I knew that once you figured all this out, you would change the world. You are, and always shall be, the greatest and most respected game developers on the entire planet. It's why I got into video game journalism in the first place. Why I turn up to every launch of every video game you've ever had, buy every collector's edition you ever sell, and support you in any way, shape, or form that I can, because I know where you come from, and I know how far you've come. Marty Stratton and Hugo Martin have had more than 10 years of building games together, and every Doom game they've ever built stands on its own. If id Software is out there right now, anywhere in the world, regardless of who you are or who you used to work for, I can almost guarantee to you, with every inch of my fucking breath, I can almost 100% assure you, wherever they are standing in the world, you can bet your ass DarkSoulsGuyX is damn proud of that fucking company. Happy 35th anniversary and happy 10th anniversary of Doom 2016, you legendary sons of bitches. You are the most decent, most honest game developers I have ever met in my entire life. I have watched you grow from humble beginnings, and that, to me, is a very rare thing to witness. What you pulled off that year was the most incredible fucking thing I've ever seen. The entire video game industry knows it. For everyone else, by the end of this video, you should have a good understanding of my passion for id Software and the Doom series as a whole, how it began and how it is at the current stage at the moment with Doom the Dark Ages. This should give you somewhat of an insight into why it's my favourite game of all time, and should give you more of a bit of an understanding of why I'm so passionate about this game every time they launch a new game. It really does mean a lot to me, it means a lot to the fans, and it means a lot to the team as well, for the feedback that they get, the support that they get, and the love that they get for the work that they do. Thank you for listening into this podcast. This is DarkSoulsGuyX signing off.